Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Hello, friend.
Hello.
It is like fall.
I know. We made it to November. I'm just so pumped. And it feels like fall.
So far, it does feel like fall.
Yeah. Halloween, we had a little bit of a nip in the air.
It couldn't have been more perfect.
It was perfect.
It was perfect weather in Dallas area.
It
was a perfect Halloween.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you want to talk about today?
I think when you were kind of, when I was asking you, like, what are your clients dealing with? And I feel like there was kind of this resounding theme. There were several topics you had that I think are all fantastic things for us to explore. But to me, the resounding theme kind of went back to culture. Mm-hmm. And I think the one that I want to focus on in this episode, if it works for you, is kind of team resistance or team trust. And to me, I kind of wonder, is it the team? Is it a rotten apple on the team that's stirring the pot? Is it the doctor that's not really leading as effectively as they could be leading? So just trying to explore that and go, are these kinds of things just going to happen from time to time and to keep it on our radar? Or do we need to be more on guard for going, do I have somebody who's turning sour? Or have I checked out and now my team is therefore... I just kind of, some of the examples you gave, I kind of thought, can we dive a little bit more into that?
Yeah. No,
I think especially here, I personally feel like, in peds, summer is a huge busy, like we're all fires, all cylinders on fire. Mm-hmm. And now we're getting to the holidays and a lot of us are like, it's hard to focus because there's so much else to focus on outside of the office. So I think this is the time where it can be easy for the practice owner / leader to kind of not be on top of things.
Yeah.
But is it not the practice owner? Is it the team? And I think I would like to kind of dive into that a little bit if you can. How can we kind of A, tease out, and then B, what do we do about it?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that this can be something that comes and goes. It's an issue of team resistance or team not wanting to follow where the train's going. I think that could be a chronic thing, or that could just be, like you saying, seasonally, where we're just hitting a time where or changes are happening in the practice that maybe the team aren't on board with. And so yeah, I think this is a good one to flesh out. And I think I've got a lot of scenarios recently from this happening. I'll give you a couple of those because I haven't even said anything about these particular scenarios. But for example, I was coming from a team meeting this last week that it's a very very progressive practice. Always something new. Always a new technology that we're incorporating. Just this doctor acquired a kind of old school practice and has therefore kind of used the last several years to push it into a very modernized, progressive practice. He's just one of these people that's just not afraid to try something new. And so he and I were touching base before the team meeting and just talking about how he feels like sometimes he's just having to drag those team members along. And the more that we talked about it, you mentioned the word culture. I think this could absolutely be a cultural thing that he's just having to take the time to put the right team members in place that are all about, let's grow, let's change, let's improve, let's push. And maybe he just doesn't have that on board, or doesn't have enough of that on board. But his team, it's interesting because they would even bring up things that they talked about like a year ago, even in the team meeting that we were doing when we were talking about new changes, new initiatives for this year. because he's the type of practice I come there and we've got a whole new list of things that we want to get done in the next quarter before I'm back again, and they go after it, man. They are getting it done. And so to have team members that are always reflecting back on, well, a year ago we did this, and remember that one holiday we shortened our appointments to this, are we not doing that again? And so anyway, even like an example like that, where is this a cultural thing, or is this maybe a few people on the team that just don't appreciate change?
Although I'm going to argue a little bit there and say for those team members, I do see where they're kind of going, but what did the data show us? Like, are we constantly just doing something new and reinventing ourselves when the need is not there?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for gleaning pearls from the data. We tried shortening these appointments, and you're, it could be that where they're like, this worked, why are we changing it? Or it could be where it worked for one or two employees and they're like, well, I wanted to get done early because that's what ended up happening, and if we're changing it, then it may not get done early. So I think it's hard to tell. I think for me, there was a time, I think for a long time, where I was like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And, I feel like I had a team that, and I still do, I think, that is still very much on like, okay, let's do it. Because I think the ones that weren't capable yet have been weeded out, and we do have the ones that are like, okay. But I think I find myself now going, why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
Why are we incorporating that? Why didn't we did this not work a year ago? Is that why we're talking something different? So I think in my office, I might be the one that's like going, wait a minute. I don't want to just keep doing things just to do them.
Yeah.
So I guess it begs the question, how long has he been at this? Like, has he been doing this? Is this like year 5 or 6 now where he's constantly having to have reinvented himself and tried to make improvements, and that's the train he's on? And does he need to pause and be like, wait a minute, we're set, we don't need to keep? Or is it, no, these are all still good changes? But I don't blame the team for saying a year ago we did this, if there's some validity to it.
Right.
Is it just that they don't want to change, or is it like, this worked and this is why, and can you listen to me for a minute? Because so
balancing it out where it's not change for the sake of change, but it's change that makes sense.
And it's not stagnant for the sake of stagnant.
Exactly.
It makes sense to
it's like balancing all of that. And I think perspective is important on that, where the practice owner may see it from a certain vantage point, and then he's got these, key people that are seeing it from their own vantage point, and all of, change has to make sense for all parties involved.
All roles, all jobs. So I guess that's where I asked then a couple of questions. One, has anything changed in that, because I think sometimes the resistors are not accounting for the changes. So like in our office, for example, we are out of network with a lot of things. So we were doing it this way. You are correct. A year ago we did this, but don't forget, we've made these changes, and so that doesn't necessarily make sense here.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the opposite. Well, I will say something like, hey guys, we need to XYZ, and they're like, no ma'am, that doesn't make sense anymore.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? We've done it that way for the last 4 years. What do you mean? Well, yeah, but the last 4 years we had these insurances, or the last 4 years we had 4 of us at the front desk. Now we've got 2. That's not going to work anymore because the dynamic has changed. Last year we, I don't know, something with the software. Last year we had Local Med that was doing our online scheduling. Now we have Modento. And with that change, we did this with Weave different. So it's like, there's all these little things. Is it a personnel change, a software change, a insurance change? Like, so it is like you are kind of always reinventing.
Yeah.
And then you've got to stop and go, wait a minute. Are we comparing apples to apples? Is everything the same as it was last year? Or has something changed?
Yeah. And what I think has to always center us. And thankfully, what this client of mine and I did in our team meeting is come back to what keeps us centered. So it's like the functionality of how we schedule appointments, or how long we schedule appointments, or how we answer the phone, or whatever the case may be. All of that is going to, I almost view it like an ocean where there's just these waves that we're having to kind of follow due to changes in the current, and so those things might be constantly, we're tweaking and changing slightly. Maybe not a total massive change, but we're editing at all times. But what's got to keep us centered is, what is our mission? What are our values? What have we decided that this practice and this team are all about? And if making this change to the way that we schedule appointments allows for better efficiency, which is one of our core values, is a smooth and seamless process for patients. So if changing our appointments enhances that core value, then it's the right change. No matter how Sally feels about it, no matter how our hygienist Donna feels about it, like, it doesn't matter how they feel. If we can clearly show, if you bring it back to the core value, making this change is going to support that core value, then ultimately it's the right change. And I think when you can get team members that are like, okay, yeah, I can see how that makes sense, then you've got a team that's following you in your vision and in what you want to accomplish with your practice. If you've got people that are like, I don't care what it does for efficiency, I like it this way, well, now you've got a dissenter. And those are the ones that can actually derail the whole mission, because they care more about, what is this change doing for me, rather than how is this change enhancing the practice.
So I think one key thing you said there that is easy to forget, and I think most of us owners do forget, and I think that's an excellent analogy, that it's an ocean wave.
Yeah.
And you are correct. The ocean is always having waves. That's the nature of the ocean, regardless of what ocean you are, right? But things like the current will change it. The moon will change it. Climate change, if you believe in it, will change it, right? Like, there's all of these different things. And I think for most of us owners, at least, let me just speak for myself, I'm going, it's the ocean. Everybody knows it's the ocean. It's not my ocean's different from your ocean. Like, the ocean is, my dental practice is, how hard could this be?
Yeah.
There's a million dental practices. Like, how hard is this?
Yeah.
But I think what most of us lose sight of then is there are these little inflections, and we have to keep up with that tide. And a lot of times we don't, because we're like, well, it just is. I set this. This is what I've set. This is what it is. This is what it's going to be. And I think for me, that was probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned, is going, you're right. Like, I still remember in my mindset, it was like, okay, I know I had already heard the staffing would be the hardest part of this whole project called my business, right?
Yeah.
And I know that, but everything else, how hard could it be? Like, you send your claims, you do your dentistry, we were well trained on that, you get some chairs, you get some etch, you get some composite. Like, really, how hard could this be? You market, like, whatever. And I think that for me has been the number one thing about an owner going, man, this looks so easy when you're not in the owner's seat. And those of you that are newer owners, and frankly, even those like me who've been owners for a while now, and it's still astounding how you're like, how the hell is this so difficult? Why is this so hard? And it's because of those little current changes. Mm-hmm. And I think that I start going, damn it, like, what changed? Why is this not working now? And reminding myself and going, you're not sitting on a football field that's like a slab of concrete. Right. We are the ocean, and it's going to change. And so there are things that work, and suddenly it doesn't work. And we didn't switch oceans. It's just the current is different. And
yes.
So to anticipate that, I think that could be one of the best things owners could do for themselves, is to switch that mindset of going, this will change.
Yeah.
This will, because the ocean just does. And If I've just kind of brushed it off as like, oh, it's this pool of water, it is, but there's a lot of things. And I think for me, that's helped calm me a lot over the years. It's taken years, but it's like, okay, don't act like it's the end of the world, that you're a failure if you are suddenly, finding yourself in this current. It is going to happen. Expect it, anticipate it, prep for it. Hopefully it's not going to be like a hurricane blah blah coming through. And it might be. From time to time, it might be. COVID was a hurricane, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
But it's not always going to be like that, but it's not going to be like this quiet little pond. No. And if you're expecting quiet little pond, which I was for years, and then like when a current would go through, blah, no. And so I think of a colleague of mine that is about to start a practice, and she basically made some comment like, well, when I learn the marketing, then I'll just do the marketing. And I kind of looked at her and I was like, wow, you are in for it. Because you seem to think that it's just like, take a marketing class, put together a marketing plan, and then that's your marketing. And I'm like, you think it's that easy? You think it's a pond. The marketing's a pond. I'm going to do A, B, C. I'm going to add 1, 2, 3. That's going to equal 6, and we're set.
Yeah.
Man, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Because you have thought that marketing was a pond when it is really an ocean.
Yeah.
And I think that's how she views the business altogether. She's been an associate now for 4 or 5 years, and she's about to start her own. And I think she really does look at her owner, Doc, as that guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
And if he can do it, I can do it, which you can.
Yeah.
But I think he is so, the owner makes it look easy.
Right.
And now she is like, okay, like this is a no-brainer. I can do this. Yeah, I can, but I don't think it's going to be the simple, straightforward thing you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And even like talking about you, like she knows of you because I talk about you a lot. I'm like, well, do you want Bethany's info? Nah, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Off you go. I'm the idiot who can't figure this pond out. I need so much help from Bethany to keep my pond filled with water, because that's all it needs is just water, and I'm an idiot. You're right. You don't need a Bethany to help you. You've got the hose, and you're just going to fill it yourself. Right. You know what I mean? Anyway, all of that, what I'm getting at is I think that's one thing you just said, that if I need to remind myself of that more often, that we are in an ocean. It's going to go up and down, and there's things that are going to affect it, and I can't just sit back and go, oh my gosh, there's a change now. No, you fool. There was going to be a change coming. Always. That is what running a business is. So if you ever sit and think, I've got this, you're a fool. Your little dinghy's about to capsize on you. Like, don't be a dinghy.
That needs to be the title of this. Don't be a dinghy.
I think of like Archie Bunker. Dingbat. Did you ever watch that? He called his wife Dingbat. Don't be a dinghy. So I think trying to figure out are you about to get capsized? Is it really a hurricane, or can you do little things and keep going without like creating your own hurricane?
Right.
What were we talking about?
Well, I would also say too, connected to this is, I think a lot of times the practice owner, whether they started off thinking it was a pond and they finally realized they're in an ocean, or whether they know they're in an ocean, they are seeing every little potential wave. They're like, oh no, the current has changed. Oftentimes practice owners, not all the time, I will say that, but oftentimes practice owners are the first to feel the changes, or to see financially, oh gosh, my advisor said, what happened to your bank account, or so they're receiving all this information.
I guess like the captain of the ship.
Yes.
They're the first ones to feel that the wave doesn't feel right yet. The crew hasn't quite caught on yet.
That's it. Now the crew is down there just rowing. They're like, I got one thing to focus on, and it's this paddle, and I'm going to be in time with the person in front of me and the person behind me. And so they're so micro-focused and laser-focused on their one role or their one task, it would be impossible for them to see and to appreciate what the captain has seen up on his or her perch, because they're down in the trenches, literally just rowing. And so a lot of times I think when a practice owner is perceiving change and they're like, ooh, we've got to pivot, we need to start actually going in this direction rather than where we're at, or we need to make this minor change. Like instead of rowing 3 beats per second, we need to go to 2 and slow it down in this particular moment. Whatever changes they're perceiving, they're oftentimes the first that are kind of leading out in some of the changes or anticipating or just going, hey, you know what? I feel like we've got a better path here. I feel like if we just made these few edits, we would get out of choppy waters and we would actually be in this smoother part of the ocean. So I'd like to go do this. And the team's like, but we had a plan and we were rowing this direction. And so the team can oftentimes will naturally resist the plan. Either they flat out start an argument and they're like, Captain, you stupid idiot, like, we're rowing in time, just get behind us and just follow our lead. We want you to just stick with the plan. Or they will resist, like, no, I'm going to drag this rudder and I'm going to fight every little change that captain is throwing at us, which then slows down the entire team. And I see it all the time.
So give me some dental examples of what you're seeing so we can kind of tie the analogy back into...
I'll give you one example of a different practice that I was with recently. And so in looking at this, let me give you kind of the nuts and bolts of what we're spotting potential storms, potential problems. So when I first talked with this practice owner, her concern was we have a capacity problem because we have new patients calling in. We can't get them in for 5 or 6 months. We are, if a recall patient falls off, we can't schedule them back for 5 or 6 months. We just have a real, it's a good problem, but it's a problem. And I know ultimately it's going to slow the practice down if we can't solve this problem. So I'm like, okay, what are some of your solutions? She's like, I don't even know. Somehow I guess I just have to kind of cut off the flow. Like maybe I need to turn off new patients and just not take new patients for a while, which to me is the kiss of death, by the way. And so I was like, okay, whoa, let me get into your system. Let me look all of this. And so once I looked, it's a pedo practice, and she was running 1 column of hygiene, just 30-minute appointments all the way down, 1 column of hygiene. And I said, well, okay, tell me about your staffing. So to manage that column of hygiene, she has a hygienist and a hygiene assistant for that column. And then I looked over at her columns and I was like, okay, you, the doctor, have 2 columns and you have 2 assistants. Column 1 is what? Column 1 is treatment. Okay, so treatment all the way down. And then what's column 2? Well, it's hygiene. It's hygiene for littles. So like 5 and under, 5 years old and under. And I was like, I was just starting to question, like, this is not making sense to me. And so one of the things that she and I talked about was, do you feel like your team is like stretched to the limit? Because when I look at your schedule, I see actually a lot of capacity that we're not taking advantage of, particularly in that hygiene column. If we have both a hygienist and a hygiene assistant running 1 column of hygiene, we should have time to add. And in talking with that, through that, she would love more capacity and has mentioned such ideas before, but there's strong resistance.
Because they don't want to work harder.
Right. Strong resistance from the hygienist in particular. And so I said, well, that's why you've brought me in, because I am a change initiator, and if you haven't been able to get that done, I will help you get that done. And so she and I, along with the schedulers, who the schedulers also believe that there's plenty of capacity. They're like, I feel like we've got time to spare. In watching the flow of patients, we're seating very much on time. We're dismissing ahead of schedule. Like, we're running very, very, very efficiently. We think there's time. And they're having to be the ones turning people away. So they're getting the brunt of not being able to schedule. So we came up with very mild changes to the schedule that would start pushing in a direction of more capacity. Specifically, we wanted to pull the hygiene column from doctor's side and move, because in addition to not wanting to run a second column, the hygienist did not want to see kids that couldn't behave, which is why the 5 and unders were on the doctor's side. So I said, we need to change that. We need to put at least 4 and 5-year-olds over on the schedule. They should be able to sit in a chair at that point. And if they can't, if there's some behavior thing, then okay, we could still keep those in the second column. But we need to clean up that second column, because in doing that, we make the doctor available for more hygiene checks. If we're tying her down with her own hygiene column, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot. Now she's less available to quickly churn out those hygiene exams. So we shifted that over, did a little bit of horizontal booking for siblings and things like that. Very mild, minimal changes. It was not a full second column for hygiene. And so in team meeting, I presented this idea. Do we have any concerns, any resistance? I was fully expecting verbal resistance from the hygienist. She did not verbally resist. But afterwards, after I had left, it's this kind of punishing the doc of resisting those changes.
This is not going to work. How am I supposed to do this? You haven't accounted for this. This is why we do this. And I guess let me go back. I'm being very unfair here. Maybe the hygienist has some real concerns in that, okay, doc, you want me to be the one to do this, 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 and this. And how is that going to work? Yes, I have a hygiene assistant, but she talks too much while she's dismissing the parent. And so then I get stuck having to turn around a room, and she can't take x-rays on the littles. And so then I'm going to end up doing that, which means then she can't scale, and then whatever it may be, right? Like, she may have some legitimate concerns and things as to why it is that way. Sad she didn't mention it while you were in the meeting.
Right.
And so I think this happens all the time in my practice, where you'll be there and you'll suggest something, and then you'll leave, and then I'm like, okay, now I just got assaulted with XYZ from these people.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And so then I have to take that feedback and go, okay, does this make sense or not? And a lot of times I can, because you and I have already talked about this plan, and you're about to roll out this plan. If I don't understand it, or if I'm like, no, this is a valid concern. The other day we had one that was a valid concern. Oh, I had said, can't we add in more columns on holidays? Because at the moment I've got 3 of us docs and 4 hygienists, and it's not going to be like that forever. But we had the school holiday in October, and that's usually we're running on all cylinders, and we were bored because we didn't have enough patience for the number of providers. Now, if I had been my usual level of providers, we would have been slammed and dying. But we had, I think, 3 extra people helping.
Right.
So I was like, well, let's add in columns for Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, because we can handle it. We just saw that we can. So you and I were like, let's do all of this. Well, my hygienist did go, whoa, 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 whoa. You're forgetting we're going to be a hygienist down. One's going to be out on maternity. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that. So we are going to be back to the normal number of hygienists. Okay, but we still have doctors.
Right.
So what are we doing to fill? Maybe we're not going to fill 2 full 30-minute each appointments, but maybe we'll fill 2 with 50-minute each appointments, because I still think we can handle that.
Right.
So anyway, there are things that I didn't want to shut her down automatically and be like, nope, because she did have a valid point.
Right.
If my first go-to had been like, she just doesn't want to work harder, I was like, no, she does, because she knows we get bonused off of.
Yeah,
but,
she's a pusher naturally.
Yeah, so but if she's pushing against, I do have to stop and say, wait a minute. Are you really pushing out of your own inconvenience? Or do you really have a point here?
Yeah. And I think you taking in that feedback, using it to help you then either edit the plan, or is it just feedback for the sake of I don't like the change, and you can navigate that. So if there's sound reasoning behind it, then it's like, okay, no, I can take that. But there may be times where there's sound reasoning and you're like, you know what? I'm still going to push forward with this plan, and I need you.
Which category was this hygienist in?
Invalid concerns is what I would say. Her concerns were, we've always been known for our, smooth and easy appointments in and out. This is going to make us look like a mill, just running patients in and out. It was just old school mentality that this is the way I've always done it. I've been a hygienist for 25 years. This is the way I think it needs to go. And this is where I talk about, like we were talking about with the ocean, the practice owner, the captain is seeing, I've got multiple problems that I need to deal with for the long-term health of my practice. Still a relative, again, she acquired the practice, she's several years in, but she's planning for the long haul. She's like, I've got to make decisions now that ultimately are going to benefit my practice for the long haul. And so capacity, she is right on the money. She needs to be thinking about capacity. If she develops a reputation early on being a hard practice to get into, they never have new patient appointments, don't call them because you'll never get in with them. That can be a death blow to her practice.
1,000% from patients saying it, patients getting irritated going, I'm not going there because if I have to move my appointment, I can't. But also from referral sources.
Yep.
Referral sources are like, they don't call them.
Yeah.
We're not referring to you anymore because you're not seeing new patients. Try to get back on that list of referral sources. Yeah. You're done.
Yep.
Even if you call them back and say, okay, we have a capacity thing now, it's too late. They've already, in their minds, they're already like, she's not
available.
It's over.
Yeah. So to me, the practice owner was absolutely spot on. Me looking at it, I've looked at thousands of schedules in my 15 years, and I was like, there's a plenty of capacity. No, just logically looking at the people that we have in place without considering their skill set, even if the hygiene assistant was the slowest person on the planet, which she's not, by the way, she's a very skilled assistant, I would say you could still do these very mild changes that we made. And in my mind, the mild changes were a step to getting to more changes that needed to be made. And so the hygiene is just going from her little rudder. This is the way I've always done it. This is the timed paddle that I've always done, and this works. But she's not seeing that the ocean has changed, that we are in a different current, that she's got to, yes, that may have worked for the practice owner that was retiring and didn't really care about the fact that
she was only going to the island next door.
Yes.
This doc is like, no, we're going to that continent out there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, your little rudder thing worked because you're just paddling next door. You didn't have that far to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next question is then, are we looking at the hygienist leaving? And what are we doing about that?
Yeah, so this is where we do have to ask the hard questions of when you've got a situation where you're like, hey, I am the captain of this ship. I am trying to lead us here, but I've got a team member that keeps dragging her dang oar in the water and just pulling us backwards, pulling us off course. What do you do in that scenario? And to me, and you know this well enough about me at this point, I am the last one to recommend firing. I don't like it. It's a change for the practice. It's expensive to get rid of somebody that you've trained and have to start back, from ground zero. But there are times that if through explaining and, hey, just trust me on this, follow me on this, if through multiple little attempts you've got a team member that won't follow you, it is not worth it to keep them on the ship, because ultimately the rest of the team has to overcompensate for that person that keeps dragging their oar in the water. We went on a trip to Broken Bow, Oklahoma. I took my kids before school got back in session. And so I was on this canoeing. I booked this canoeing thing. And so I had my little 6-year-old in the front of my canoe, and my two older girls teamed up together, and then my 2 boys. And so it was interesting because she had, I didn't get her an oar. I'm like, she's not going to know how to do this. But she sat in the front of the boat, and she laid on that seat, and she would drag her hand in the water the whole way, which I thought was the cutest thing ever. But I could not stay up with my other kids that were just paddling away, getting away from me down the river, because I had this little kid that open hand, just dragging her hand in the water the whole way. It slowed me down so much that I was physically exhausted by the time we got to the stopping point, because I had been trying to overcompensate for that drag on the canoe. Not to mention, I had to like paddle differently, because if her hand was on the left side, I had to put more emphasis on paddling with the right side on. So anyway, it was just constantly me having to compensate for her dragging the canoe down. And we think about that on a team, and it is exhausting for the team to have to pivot their movements. Oh, now I got to paddle on this side because, Susie that always resists us is doing this now. So now I got to pivot this way. And that's exhausting to the team, not to mention it slows the whole progress of the ship down. And so in those moments when it's somebody that just can't get on board mentally, we got to have that conversation where it's like, you got to go because you're not on board and this is tiring for you. You're unhappy because you really just want to sit in your seat and row in the same direction you've always rowed. And that's not the way this ship is going. You're either going to have to change seats and you don't like that, or you're going to have to row differently and you don't like that. And it's just not working. And in those cases, I do think it's best for the team member to move on.
Which happened to us not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I really liked this rower. Sweetest thing, and damned if she didn't bring that nice steady row.
Yeah.
But we just needed more out of her, and she saw herself off the ship, which made me sad from a feeling standpoint, but damned if it wasn't good for her moving out of our way so we could move forward.
Yeah.
And I think she realized that. I think she realized she was the one slowing the boat down, and she didn't want to be that one. So it was really a good situation.
Yeah.
The best it could be of a bad situation. For this hygienist, I guess to me my question becomes, are you just so stuck in your way that you're like, I'm not gonna make it to that new continent. I am gonna get off the boat. Or if she's just like, y'all are a pack of idiots, you're never gonna get to that continent, my rowing will get us there.
Yeah.
Like, is it her that's the delusion? So what did you advise them? I guess my thought would be like, if you're just like, hang in there, let's see if this can work, and then you're kind of pausing and seeing, can she change her rowing, or where are we going to be? Are we going to give this a couple of months?
Yeah.
Is she going to create so much of a storm that she's getting more water in the boat than you are going to ask her to leave? Might you consider, like, have y'all looked for another hygienist to see, and we're not able to find one yet? But
there's actually another hygienist on the team that's there 1 day a week. So that was part of the capacity change that they had made, I think, like a year ago. The doctor's like, okay, I can't change the one hygiene column, but I can run a hygiene heavy day on Tuesdays and bring in an additional hygienist to run an extra column. And this hygienist, the other days of the week, she's in a corporate practice. And so this is like a walk in the park for her. She's like, this is the easiest schedule I've ever had. And so her perspective has been really helpful, so that the team realizes, oh, there's a life out there where, a practice sees 50 patients a day.
2 columns.
Yeah.
They're just fine.
Yes. So I do feel like that hygienist, has the right mindset. I think that hygienist would gladly come over full time to the practice. So I think there's essentially a backup in place. I think for the practice owner, she doesn't want that to be the change. She wants it to work with the team that she has in place. And so the advice is, let's push forward. Let's try this for a couple months and see how it goes. I was recently there, and the changes were just starting to take effect, and there had been just a lot of belly aching about the changes. And so we set up some boundaries for that, to go, hey, we're going to run a day. We're not going to pause and come up to the front and complain about how that shouldn't have been scheduled that way. We're not going to take these little pit stops in the doctor's office and talk about see how this schedule doesn't work. Look at how it failed here. Now we're running behind. We're not going to do that. We incorporated an end of the day huddle during these changes. So it's just 10 minutes at the end of the day that the team gets together and they look back at the schedule and go, okay, where were our tough points? Where were our areas that we maybe need to keep an eye on for next time? that is your moment to communicate any frustrations that you had about the day. But outside of that, we can't do it all throughout the day. So even just putting those boundaries in place.
Which is so annoying, because if this woman has been in dental for a while, like, or whatever, she sounds like she's an older person, so you know better than to sit there and bellyache all day and whatever. You can't help yourself, I suppose, but, like, grow up is what I want to say. Like, give it a minute. But I think it's probably you think you know best, and you're trying to save the team from the inevitable destruction that Bethany and this doc don't see, but I see it. Like, okay, lady.
Yes.
Which is hard then for other teammates too, to be like, who am I trusting here? And I think the challenge of, like you said, if this other woman steps in, this one at the corporate, the temp, but she, I'm sure, is going to have her own set of issues that she could bring to the team and change the dynamic. Even, I think my suggestion was going to be, what if she didn't come on full time? Would she be able to come in 2 days instead of the 1 day? But even then, at what point does it get to be where she's blowing and going and seeing 20 patients, and then this old one is seeing like 8? And is that going to cause issues of it's not fair, or
right?
I can just see all the things that pop up, and it's easy for this doc to be like, you know what, never mind. Let's just stick with old Betty until she retires, and then but you can't afford to do that. You're trying to get somewhere. And even though Betty brings a lot of really good things, at this point, either, I think that's where we just saw it, where luckily our Betty saw herself off the team.
Yeah.
But I wasn't reliant on her. And in this case, you kind of are. I don't know. That's tough.
It's challenging. And to me, this is a challenge for practice owners, because it's like, you do have to navigate these waters well, and there's nothing easy about it. There really isn't anything easy about it. But I would say the mistake would be for my client if she's only thinking about, well, we can pit stop at that island and then blah blah blah. No, you've got to be aware of where your practice needs to be long term. You've got to be protecting the health of your practice today, and you need to stay on course for that destination. And if there is a team member that's begging you to stop off at that island with their behavior or with their pushback to the changes that you're trying to make, as much as I love people and I don't want anybody going off of a team, it is not worth it to derail the entire destination for a team member.
Especially when you've got other team members that are like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to go to that continent. I've been wanting to go there for a long time. Yep. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Because that's not always the case. A lot of times you've got multiple dissenters, and then you've got to be like, am I the fool that thinks we can get to that continent? And maybe, what am I thinking? Am I just going there because everybody else says they're going there? Yeah. And that's why I'm going? So there's things to consider. But in this case, it's sounding like everybody else, from the front desk to the assistants, are all on board. And if it's this one person, then one person, either somebody needs to encourage her along and show her what's possible, because maybe she's never dreamt that big.
Right.
Or she knows what she's doing, and she just doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
And is she going to keep the whole ship from getting there?
Yeah. And again, as a leader, you've got to be watching for that. And then I would say too, to our team members that listen to the podcast, don't be that person, even though change can be hard and there's nothing pleasant usually about change, please don't fight the destination. Don't resist. Don't make it miserable for the whole team.
And I would say, a lot of times you may not even realize you're doing it. I think a lot of times you do, because you want it your way. And my challenge to you is to say, do you not trust the people you work with? Why do you think you know better than everybody else? Especially when somebody like Bethany is there looking at things. And fair enough, fine. You're right. You, Bethany, don't know all the dynamics that you can't see on a daily basis. But you didn't just roll over and go, hey, let's try this. You have years and thousands of things that you see, and this doc has invested in bringing you in for a reason.
Yeah.
And doc might be newer, and so team member, you might be like, oh, this fool doesn't know what she's doing. You're right. The captain doesn't know everything. The captain hasn't been in every storm and every chartered waters, but you know what? Neither have you.
Right.
you've never been the captain, honey. So keep perspective there.
Yeah.
And if you know you're going to be like, well, I know better and I don't know why they're doing this, well, then you might be the one who needs to get yourself off that ship.
Right.
You cannot change your mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to your point, don't be that person. And you know, challenge yourself. Am I being that person? And I think if you know you're a pot stirrer,
yes,
admit it and quit stirring that pot.
Own it and then make changes.
Yeah, and challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think you can't do it? Is that the problem?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, or are you just too cushy in where you are and you're not seeing the advantage to you to going to that continent?
Right.
Well, don't be so close-minded. You never know what you don't know. You don't know what's waiting for you at that island. Like,
right.
You've just because you've never been that way or thought about venturing out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't be that person.
Don't be that person. Don't be Betty. Is that what we called her earlier? Don't be Betty.
Don't be Betty.
Don't be a dinky.
Dingbat. Don't be a dingbat.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.